Welcome to another episode of Hi, I'm Jason with Jason Pollock. I am not Jason. Join Jason and Justin back in the green room as they talk with some of their favorite folks from the entertainment industry. And now, the man you haven't been waiting for, Jason Pollock.
Hey, welcome. Hi, Melissa. Welcome. Thank you for doing the show today. In
No,
place of
I'm Justin.
Oh, yeah, you're Justin
Yes,
today.
I'm
I
Justin.
got to tell you, poor Justin's having an MS flare-up, so he couldn't be here. But damn it, you are so much easier on the eyes.
Thank you. I try. How you doing?
Yeah, I mean, he's a good-looking dude, but still. He brought, we spent our anniversary. I celebrated my 10-year wedding anniversary this past weekend, and Justin came over with a bucket of eclairs.
Oh my God. Well,
Yeah.
happy belated anniversary.
Thank you very much.
Tell your wife I said hi.
I will
I
definitely
only got
do
to
that.
see her for like those 3 minutes, but she's very
I got to
nice.
tell you, she's wonderful. I can't get her on camera, but
Yeah. You have to relay the message after.
I will definitely do that. You know what? The best thing about having overweight friends is the food they bring over. They don't skimp.
Well,
It's
you are
magical.
celebrating a big milestone, so it's important to have sweets.
Yeah, and they brought it wrapped in tin. Apparently, 10 years you give a tin or aluminum gift. I gave her aluminum foil, so
Oh, there you go. Hey, very practical.
it is practical. That's
Okay.
what we go for here.
There you go.
And okay, let's bring out our not yet. I'm going to give him a good intro. This gentleman is a TV legend, TV icon. He comes from a time when TV was simple and it looked like the world was a happy place. Let's welcome Stanley Livingston of My Three Sons.
Hey there, guys. Well, actually,
Hi.
I'm from a time when the TV had a crank on the side of it.
Yes.
You had to hand crank that TV.
Stan, thank you for being here.
Happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Every time I watch My Three Sons or Leave It to Beaver, I just feel like I'm going to live in that time.
Me too. How do we get back there? I think a lot of people
simpler
do.
times.
Yeah, it was a different world back then, wasn't it?
It really was. And you guys gave off the impression that it was even more simpler than that.
Yeah, we had no problems, no wars, no civil rights issues, no drugs, no nothing. It was pretty boring.
I remember I met Tony Dow at a convention and asked him how similar to his real life in the 50s was Leave It to Beaver. And he said, "What do you think?" Which just said it all in that answer.
Well, oddly enough, Barry, my brother, who was Ernie on the show, and I, we had a life that was pretty much like Ozzie and Harriet. My parents were very much an Ozzie and Harriet, better looking, but they didn't fight hardly, and they were really cool parents. And gosh, I can't imagine choosing better parents than them. We really hit the jackpot.
Great. You had a good child star background.
Yeah, well, I started on Ozzie and Harriet. That's actually where I got started in the business. Was hired as an extra, and for whatever reason, Ozzie took a liking to me while we were just standing around talking. And then when we were coming to shoot the scene that I was in as an extra, we shot it a couple times, and he came up to me and said, "Hey, could you say this line when you're standing right here?" He goes, "Just say this," and he told me what to say, and which was, "Sure is mighty good camping in there, Mr. Nelson." And I said it, and then he moved the camera in a little bit closer, and I got my close-up, and that started the ball rolling for me. I went from extra to actor, and one day joined the Screen Actors Guild. And well, actually, I had an agent by that point, but I hadn't really worked a lot, and everything I was getting was extra. But after that, the door kind of opened. I started getting movies and other TV shows, and actually, I did a TV pilot for Jackie Cooper, 1958, which had it sold, I wouldn't have been in My Three Sons. So thank God it didn't. But it got the attention of the producers who were screened a copy of the pilot. And the pilot starred me, and I was blonde, cute, and could remember a lot of lines. So I was hired on the spot.
You kind of stole the show of My Three Sons. As soon as I booked you as a guest, my wife said, "You've got to watch a couple episodes. I love that show."
Yeah.
and we started at the beginning.
Yeah, I think it's Me TV that runs them right now. And yeah, a couple weeks ago they started over with show number one. And anyway, it takes over a year to show them all because there's 380 episodes, so just slightly more than a year's worth if you can stand and
That's a
watch
lot
it.
of work you did.
Yeah, well, I was 9 when I started and 23 when it was over.
Oh my God, did you have a childhood?
Well, let's put it
A
this way:
great
every
childhood.
pimple I ever got was right on TV. You could see it. When my beard started growing in when I was about 15, 16, that everything that would happen, they'd write a show around it, like Chip gets a pimple, Chip shaves, or girls, baseball, whatever I was into, skateboards, you name it. They would, write episodes. The writers were sort of in tune with what we were doing in real life. So, yeah, it was kind of cool, and then
That's so
nice to
cool.
have a memory of yourself for literally almost every week for 12 years.
What an honor that must have been. That's so wild.
Yeah, no, it's an honor, but it's strange too at the same time that you go, wow, everything that ever happened to me was kind of portrayed up there on TV and
Yeah, it
for the
was like
world to see.
almost a
There's no
reality show.
privacy, no
Um,
personal. It's all happening in front of millions of people.
Hold on, my wife, my beautiful wife, just crawled into the room because she refuses to be on camera, and handed me some Post-its for you.
For me?
Oh my God,
Yes.
his life is so.
Okay.
so
We
funny,
this
so
is about an
adorable.
episode we watched. Do you remember that super cool episode with the rocket countdown? I remember we
Yes.
watched that.
Yeah.
It
where
was
they
an
had the
episode of you
clock
guys
and
living
it's
your life,
ticking.
coinciding with the rocket ticking.
Yeah. Well, that's how our life was, and that's what they were saying. We were highly regimented, and if it was 8:02 and 30 seconds, everybody was in the bathroom brushing their teeth or trying to get to that one toilet in the house or something. Yeah, that was a pretty funny
That was a
episode.
very
I think,
poetic episode. Yeah.
yeah, one of my favorites from that early episode, and it was really, I thought, unique. Most of the shows were kind of the same. But there was one that was very, very, I mean, nail biting, exciting. It was an episode where the dog, in fact, that particular episode starred Tramp, who brought a stick of percussion dynamite into the house and kept dropping it and fell down the stairs, went
Oh
into
my
the
God.
laundry chute. But I mean, you're sitting there on the edge of your seat because of that little device they used for that.
I never realized till we started watching it how clever the writing was for that show.
The what?
The writing
Oh
was
yeah,
really
early
smart.
on, I thought the writing was really stellar writing. And we had great writers, and most of the writers in those days, they had a life outside of TV, or they had a life prior to TV where they actually lived life, as opposed to what goes on today. It's kids grow up, they watch TV shows, and then they become writers. They don't have a real life. They just whatever's on TV or whatever they're interested in, and that's why we keep
Right.
seeing the same movies over and over
The
again.
remakes and the reboots. Oh my, nothing original. It's
No, well, if you don't go live life, you're not going to have anything original. You're just going to have
Exactly.
Superman
the-
26 and
Even in
Spider-Man
comedy, the best,
28.
so true. Even in comedy, the best material comes from your own experiences.
Yeah, it does. I mean, even if you look at something like Seinfeld, those were all
Yeah.
I
little
love that show.
tiny small things that happened to them, and they had the creativity to turn that into a half hour. Or another one I think has probably been my favorite show in the last year is the Kaminsky Method. I mean, the writing is
I was told I
beyond
need to watch that. Yeah, Michael Douglas.
Yeah, it's really good. It's Chuck Lorre writes, I guess, most of the scripts, and Michael Douglas is, he's so good, and he's kind of playing his age now and playing against it. Not trying to be a young actor anymore, but dealing with, prostate cancer and all the things you'd be dealing with when you're in your 70s or 80s, I guess. But yeah, it's the way he deals with it and the words that are chosen for him to say. The show is, I'm probably going to watch it again. I just absolutely loved it.
You how many seasons of that is there? Because I'm a
I
little
think there were
behind.
3. There was 2, and then we didn't realize there was a third, and I guess it was about a month ago we realized they had another season of season 3, and literally within, I think the same night, I think we watched the whole series in one night. We just binged it out.
That's what happens with Netflix. That's why I've gained so much weight.
Well,
I blame Netflix
yeah, well,
and
that and
overweight.
COVID, being home and just watching TV all the time.
Yes.
It's a good time to catch up on all the TV you wanted to watch that you
Oh,
couldn't.
my wife has
You used
one
to have a
more
life.
post-it. She has one more post-it for you. Did Fred McMurray ever talk about Barbara Stanwyck or Carol Lombard? My wife's a
Yeah,
big
he
fan
just
of both.
nonstop was talking about them. He'd walk around the set, just talk. No, no, never brought him up unless we asked, And I probably asked Fred more questions that were related to acting and craft after the show was over and I was older. And yeah, it wasn't like I was 9 years old and go, hey, what was that method you were using with Barbara Stanwyck back in Double Indemnity? Yeah, that probably wouldn't have worked for my three sons anyway. But yeah, he was a cool guy. He was just
Oh, that's
almost
good
as
to
you
hear.
saw him as Steve Douglas. That's really who he was. I never saw him get angry or pissed off. I mean, he was very conscientious about the work we did, and if something didn't feel right or the dialogue didn't feel right, he would stop and they would get the producer down on the set who would call the writer and they would kind of work out whatever issue he was having. So it wasn't like things got by him, but if you work on
It's good
certain
because he was a
shows.
big star at the time of the show,
Oh,
wasn't he? He was already,
huge. I mean,
yeah,
it's
he was already
completely
a legend.
different than now. He was, I think, at the apex of his career in 1960 when he came to TV, or 59 when we did the pilot. As a guy who had like 100 movies, and and he not like it was a career that was behind him. He was still in the midst of his movie career. He just finished The Shaggy Dog, Absent-Minded Professor, um, Son of Flubber, tons of movies, a lot of Disney movies. But right before that, he did The Cane Mutiny, The Apartment, which were
Double
heavy
Indemnity.
duty, dramas. So yeah, he was no stranger to drama, but he did comedy as well. And My
That's
Three
really
Sons was
good to hear.
perfect for him.
Yeah, I'm glad he didn't have an ego and he was easy to work with. That's really good to hear.
Yeah, really easy to work with, and like I said, a good role model if you wanted to become an actor or actually stay an actor. There's a lot of stars that have tantrums and fits and meltdowns on the set, related to working with people or the material that they're working on. Fred was never like that. Just easy going, wanted to get the problem solved and go on to the next scene. And yeah,
That's great.
and as big a star as he was purported to be one of the richest guys in Hollywood. Well, he drove the Pontiac station wagon that Pontiac lent to him during the show, the era of the show, as all the actors had. We drove Pontiacs for the last half of the show, and the earlier half we had Chevrolets. So,
So he was practical.
he could have been driving a Lamborghini.
Yeah.
Imagine Fred in a Lamborghini. But he just was an ordinary guy. He'd bring stuff, to work that he would work on, tying flies so he can go fly fishing, and electrical sockets from his house that he would rewire. Just a normal guy that happened to be a movie star, a big one.
What about William Frawley? Because I know on his Ethel on I Love Lucy couldn't stand him.
I think a lot of that was. I don't think that's really what it was. I think they may have had an issue from time to time, but they were pretty professional. I think that whole thing where they would yell at each other was something they did for other people's benefits. People like to hear them yelling at each other, and they were happy to accommodate that.
Right. It's just kind of tabloid talk.
Yeah, it's like one of those things where you yell at people, but you really like them. But if you're seeing a photo saying, I've got to call her whatever, her bitch or something, somebody's looking. But he was a crazy guy. He was probably besides my brother being on the show, my favorite thing about My Three Sons was working with William Frawley. I was
that's cool.
Probably a fan of his when he came to the show. I certainly knew who he was from I Love Lucy, which I used to play hooky. My brother and I both did, so we could watch I Love Lucy. And he was such a funny, cantankerous guy that, when I found out he was, hired to be the grandfather on the show, I was thoroughly happy about that. And then I didn't know either of my grandfathers in real life. They'd both expired by then. And I set out on a mission to make Bill Frawley my new grandfather. So, He wasn't really a guy, I think, that liked kids or animals so much. He was cut out of that W.C. Fields
WC
cloth.
Fields, yeah.
Yeah, but he warmed up to me, and yeah, we were best friends the whole time he was on the show. We ate lunch together every day. We go back to his dressing room, play checkers and chess, and he'd take me to fights, to baseball games. You know, occasionally we'd
Wow.
smoke a cigar. Here,
Wow.
kid, here's
What
a
a
cigar for you.
childhood. That's amazing.
Yeah,
So
yeah, he was.
you were a kid and you're watching I Love Lucy and you decided you wanted to be an actor and your parents were supportive and you made it. That's just
That
you were
part was
living the
all luck.
dream.
I mean, you know, I had what it took, so that's kind of, where the other part of it comes in. I liked what I was doing, and when I was in school, I was going to elementary school, starting out in first, second, third, grade. If there were shows, I wanted to be in them. They had an auditorium. I went to Vine Street Elementary School in Hollywood, and before that, I went to Gardner Street Elementary School. But whatever, little school plays they put on or musical shows, my hand went right up and I was in them and cast, and remember being the MC at a Christmas show. And anyway, so I like doing that work, which is half the battle, because some kids don't, or they're intimidated by standing up in front of an audience. And I kind of got a kick out of it. And the thing that kind of fused everything together for me was my mom sent me to a swim school in Hollywood. And the lady that owned the place, she was pretty savvy. There was a lot of kids there learning how to swim, and it was a huge pool. It was on Hollywood Boulevard near Western. And she got a lot of Hollywood people come there and bring their kids there to learn how to swim, producers, directors, kids. And there was an agent whose daughter was learning how to swim there. And anyway, she, seemed to be interested in me and was always talking to my mom. And, I was blonde and cute and pretty extroverted. So I thought she thought I made a good candidate to be an actor. And my mom agreed to, let her send me out on things. And, the first few things I got, I didn't have any lines. I was just an extra. And it wasn't until Ozzie and Harriet that I got to say a line, and that allowed me to join the Screen Actors Guild. And then there was no looking back.
Your parents had some great bragging rights.
Yeah, and I'm proud of all the things that I was in, in those days. I mean, there was a lot of local shows, a lot of shows. I don't even remember what I did, that I don't even know if there's mention of them anywhere or notations or whatever, but I remember being in a lot of things and just kind of working a lot. And the Ozzie and Harriet led to a pilot that I did called Skippy, which Jackie Cooper, a former child star, you guys probably remember him if you watched The Little
Superman.
Rascals.
And the Little
He was
Rascals.
one of the Rascals, but he was also in movies. He did a lot of movies with Wallace Berry, the Champ, the original Champ. And by then, he was probably in his early 30s, and he was a producer, director of TV shows. He did The People's Choice, which was on for about 2 or 3 years. And then after that, he did Hennessy. And then maybe younger audiences or somewhat younger audiences remember him from the original Superman movie with,
Yes.
he played
Chris
Perry
Reeve.
White in that. So he, was in all, I think, a couple of those, but most of his career had moved over to producing and directing. But he was in a movie when he was a kid called Skippy, and Skippy, I think, won the Academy Award for Best Picture, and he was nominated as a child for Best Actor. He was the youngest person ever nominated for Academy Award back in 19, I believe it's 34 or 37. And so he had a reputation in the industry, and lo and behold, he met me, and I guess he saw himself in me. And I was visiting his set unannounced. There was a dog on his show named Cleo. I don't know if you remember The People's Choice, but the conceit of the show was it was a husband and wife, and then they had a dog, a basset hound, that the audience could hear. He would talk, in other words, he'd make comments about the adults. Like, oh, come on, you guys are being ridiculous. They were fighting or whatever.
Very
So
Family Guy.
I wanted to go over and play with the dog. So I'd go over onto that set while I was doing Ozzie and Harriet. And one day this guy walked up to me and he said, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm Stanley Livingston." And he said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm playing with this dog." And I guess he'd ask you, he says, "Well, where's your mom?" And I said to him, "Am I in trouble?" And he said, "No, you're not in trouble, but I would like to meet your mom." And I said, "Okay." So I led him back to stage 5 where we were shooting Ozzie and Harriet. and introduced him to my mom. And I had no idea who he was. And, the two of them started talking, but I could see my mom had like a shell-shocked expression on her face because she knew it was Jackie Cooper, and she was kind of starstruck. So they stood there and talked for about 15, 20 minutes, and then he left. And I remember he waved to me, and I went about my business shooting the Ozzie and Harriet. And then about 2, 3 months later, next thing I knew, I was shooting a TV pilot, and he was the director and producer. And he decided to take the movies in Skippy and try and turn it into a TV series. And we shot the pilot, which ultimately never sold. I don't know why. I think it's because he went on to another show called Hennessy. And that was probably a better gig for him. And My Three Sons came along, but he allowed us to use the pilot reel, and show it to different producers when I was up for something. So that TV
Or
pilot
kind of
was
like
shown. Yeah,
for like your audition.
yeah, in those days there was no, videotape. There was no DVDs. If you wanted to show your work, you had to go borrow a print from the producer if they'd even let you borrow it. Go rent a movie theater that would stay open after midnight, hire the projectionist, and people would come to these theaters after midnight to see your work. Very complicated. Much easier now.
Yeah.
You just send them your reel on a DVD or just a file. But so My Three Sons came up. They saw the reel. They next day called my agent, wanted me, and I was hired. And I had to wait around till they got all the rest of the people. The only person before that was Fred McMurray, but the show was built around him. And they finally got William Frawley and Tim Considine and Don Grady.
And your brother joined the cast as well.
Yeah, he was about the third year of the show. He came on as a friend. He was like a school chum of mine. And so he did, 2, 3, 4 episodes a year as a friend. And then the fifth year of the show, Tim Considine announced he didn't want to come back. So we did one episode, and we were kind of in a jam. The show was called My Three Sons, but we were down to 2 sons, and we needed a third son in a hurry. And since there's no nepotism in show business, my brother got the job. So he was at the right place, the right time. I mean, they were aware of him anyway. Barry was working by then. In fact, when I left Ozzie and Harriet, the last show I did for them, my little brother Barry was in that episode. And, he was so cute, his glasses and kind of a Mo Howard haircut and buck teeth. And so he stayed on there the first couple of years of My Three Sons and became their proverbial, neighborhood kid. And then I said about the third year, they started hiring him on My Three Sons as like a friend of mine, when we did schoolroom scenes, or he'd come home with me. And so they set up his character pretty sympathetic. And when Tim left, they concocted a storyline where he was a foster child and his parents were leaving the country, and they couldn't take him with them. So he was up for adoption. And, the Douglas household, Steve decided he should be adopted, and he became Ernie. And can I call you Dad, Mr. Douglas? And everybody cried, and Barry became Ernie and was there for the other, whatever it was, 7, 8 years.
That's such a cool story.
Yeah, it really is kind of interesting. But like I said, Barry, it wasn't like he wasn't working. By that point, he had done some movies. He was in Papa's Delicate Condition with Jackie Gleason. He was in The Errand Boy with Jerry Lewis. He was in, what was it called, My Six Loves with Debbie Reynolds.
So he did okay for
David
himself.
Jensen. Yeah, so, and a bunch of TV shows. So, he had the credits. Back Barry and I, a lot of people don't know this, we worked together right after I started on Ozzie and Harriet, but before they were using it. I did a movie with Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward called Rally Around the Flag Boys. And when I went in for the interview, I got hired, and my mom happened to bring Barry with me. We were waiting, they were waiting in the outer office, and the director saw him, wanted to know who he was, and said, oh, well, there's another little brother. Why don't we just use him? So he got hired. And the first day of shooting, the first scene we shot was Barry and I sitting on the couch, focused on a TV set, and Paul Newman comes in and says, hey boys, how you doing? And we just ignore him and just keep staring at the TV set. And then he goes into the kitchen, and anyway, a couple seconds later, a pillow hits him in the head right when he's taking a drink of booze, and glass goes flying. But when we were shooting the first part of it, where we were looking at the TV set, the director kept getting madder and madder at my brother because it didn't look like he was looking at the TV set. It looked like he was looking elsewhere. And we shot about 4 or 5 times. This guy started yelling at Barry. And by noon, they sent Barry to an optometrist during the lunch hour. I found out he had a cross eye. And by 1 o'clock, he was fired, and there was another kid brought in.
Oh
So
my God, poor
I
Barry.
know. So poor Barry got
Aw.
fired on his first film, but because of that, he got glasses, which turned him into a different looking kind of kid. He looked like a nerdy brain and kind of
It worked for
cemented
him.
his career because everybody looked like me or, the kid on Dennis the Menace. We all had blonde hair and Barry had dark hair and kind of had that Mr. Moto look.
So the ladies must have loved you when you came of age in your teen years. That
Yeah,
must have
well,
been the
even before, I used to dread going back to public school. I didn't have a tutor, and most of the kids that were in show business in those days, the guys that were doing, like I was saying, Dennis the Menace or some of the other shows, they all went to a school in Hollywood called Hollywood Professional School, and it catered to showbiz kids. And you'd go to school from 9 to 12, and then you were out, and it was kind of a exclusive education. And I thought I was going there. My parents go, "You're going back to public school." I was like, "Really?"
Was it too expensive?
So I'd go there, and all the little girls were all over me and getting beat up or in fights with the guys because they were jealous, and it was pretty crazy. But yeah, I went to public school the entire time I was on My Three Sons, so it was quite unique. Every February when I had to go back to public school, I used to just shut my eyes and go, I hope this isn't going to be too bad today. And, you'd come in and, everybody knew who you were and staring at you and pointing
like
at you, talking about you. So, and I just wanted to fit in and do what they were doing with, no problems. So after a while it wore off. You found out that the kids that want to be your friend were, and there was some that wanted to be your friend because you're on TV. And then there was other guys that wanted to kill you because you're on TV. So,
Did you have
ran the
friends that you
gamut.
kind of stuck with? Did you have friends from before you were famous that you kind
Oh
of
yeah,
stuck
I'm
with?
still friends with all the guys from my neighborhood from when we were about 4 or 5 years old. We're still in communication. Sometimes they come out and
That's
visit, or I visit them. Yeah, but I made friends all along the way too. From school, I grew up in Hollywood and knew people from there. And my parents moved to Studio City in the Valley when I was about 13, and lost all my original friends. Well, not the ones I was close friends with, but people from school, and made new friends in the Valley at the new junior high and then at high school. And yeah, so it was for being somebody who was on TV and what people perceived as a special life, it was pretty ordinary. I'd do the work, then I go back to school, and I'd be just like everybody else, wanting to play baseball, football, tennis.
living the Beatle lifestyle though in school.
Yeah, my parents, I think, were wise sending us back to public school. Their rationale was later, when I said, well, why can't I go there? They go, those kids are going to come out maybe half baked because they're there and they're all hanging out with themselves and they're all on TV
You know what it's
shows.
like in the real world this
Yeah,
way.
if you think you're
You weren't so
special, you're going to
deluded.
be in trouble when you get to the real world. Somebody, knocks you down and puts you in your place. So my parents decided, look, if you go to public school, you're going to be with normal kids that don't know any of this, and you'll learn how to be friends with people because this is going to end or whatever. You got to learn
It'll keep you grounded.
how to take care of yourself in the real world.
Exactly. Did
Yeah,
you
you're not
continue
going to be with
acting in My
actors
Three
when you
Sons?
grow up.
Right.
So
Did-
yeah, it
did-
kind of put a different sensibility, I think, in us than other kids that were doing this, in that we had to cope with going back to school, but it gave us pretty good skills in dealing with all types of people, and how you present yourself and how you want to be perceived. I mean, last thing you can do is go back to junior high or high school and think you're better than everybody else. Somebody will throw a brick at your head, show you you're
Yeah, you don't
not.
want to do it.
Yeah, so we kind of went through that, and I think it made us very sociable people, and work for later in life too. So
Yeah,
Did you
you're
continue
extremely
acting?
down to earth. I mean, it's fantastic.
yeah, I'm pretty down to earth.
Well, no, it's just like
Fix
you were
my own
saying,
house. I do my
some
own
of the,
plumbing.
some of the people, they can get a little crazy or temperamental, and instead you had a different experience where you were living in the real world while you were also
Yeah,
working in the
exactly.
fictional world in a sense, and it just
Well, I
helped you
think
keep it
that's what our
grounded.
parents wanted for us, is that we're living in the real world. You come home from being a movie star and being on the set all day, and my mom would come out and she's going, "You need to get in the backyard. There's dog poop everywhere."
Go
George
take out
went,
the
and
trash.
Margie
You
went.
realize it was just on TV.
Right, I know. It's like, boy, that'll knock you down a couple pegs. But yeah, we just, outside of that, we had a very ordinary life. We tried to do everything everybody else did. Sometimes it didn't work out so good. Remember one time we went to Disneyland, which, we went to a lot, but maybe we skipped a couple of years. And by then the show was on and we went. And all of a sudden there was this enormous crowd figured out who I was. And we were being chased. And all of a sudden these security guards, came and like, what's going on? What's going on? They didn't know what was happening. And my dad had to say, "Oh, well, they want autographs. They're following us everywhere, and he's saying, "Well, you need to let us. You have to tell us when you come to Disneyland so we can provide security for you, and make sure nothing happens to you and get you to the front of the line." We're like, "Oh, well, we're okay waiting in line, but I don't know why these people got so pushy and all that." So, it was embarrassing, if anything. We just wanted to go through like we always did with our family. And you wait in line, you chit chat, and you get to the front of the line and go on the ride. But, it's hard to do if like a couple hundred people are trying to get at you.
Yeah, I mean, I have never been famous, but I know what it's like just because of these, this plenum right here.
Yeah.
Just going
It
on
is a
public, I
beautiful
guess.
plenum. Everybody wants a
Thank you.
piece of it.
Yeah, and everybody's nice, they just want an autograph or take a picture with you.
Yeah, I
Nothing
can't
wrong with
blame you.
that. But, we were like, gosh, we only have a couple of days off a week or one day off. And, this is what we want to do. We want to go to Disneyland and pig out and, ride rides and not be bugged. But, unfortunately, that was part of it. You had to accept that. And I think that's a big problem for a lot of actors, not only, child actors and adult actors. They can't stand, people coming up to them or the paparazzi, clamoring to take your picture every 2 minutes. And
But
it's,
it
it
comes with
gets
the
old. But
territory.
yeah,
It does, but
Yeah, you lose your
that's the
sense
bottom
of
line, is that's what you signed up for. If you didn't like it, you shouldn't have become an actor, because it's not just the acting. That's what goes with it. So thank God
did
it
you
doesn't happen as
continue
much.
acting after that?
Yeah, I acted till the time I was, well, actually till the time I was about 30, different TV shows, some movies. But when I was about 20, I formed a production company. And when I was in college, studied cinema, cameras, editing, film emulsions, production, scheduling, everything, you could possibly do to have a
Behind the
production
scenes.
company. And then, yeah, with a guy that I knew from college, we formed a production company, started shooting commercials and music videos, industrial stuff. And, we're hoping to eventually do a movie or TV show. And, over my career, I've done all of those things, shot films, pilots, even shot I guess you call it featurette about 6-7 years ago in Cinerama. Which is,
I've heard of Cinerama.
yeah, Cinerama is a process with this enormous camera. It looks about the size of a phone booth. It's actually 3 cameras, one looking straight forward and one on each side, crisscrossing. So you have this panoramic view. And back in the late 50s, early 60s, Cinerama came about. It was invented by engineers who didn't really know what they were doing in terms of filming stories. So they did some documentaries, and they were pretty much like travel logs, like 7 Wonders of the World. They would go there and they had this camera there, and, it emulated what you see as human vision, almost 180 degrees. And it was spectacular, and it brought a lot of people back to the theater, because the movies, they weren't doing well in the 50s. TV had just started to come in, and, by the end of the 1950s, people weren't going to the theater the way they used to, and they needed a gimmick to get people back in. And they were pretty smart. They used this thing called Cinerama to bring people back into the theater, and it was
Did William
perceived
Castle have
as
anything to do with
advanced.
that?
Yeah, people would come to see a Cinerama film, in a suit and tie or a tuxedo, like they were going to some, big thing. And yeah, it was interesting, but it was And because it was new, it was sort of acceptable. But if you see a Cinerama film now, you wish you brought a gun so you could shoot yourself and put yourself out of your misery.
Doesn't
It's
William
a very
Castle, didn't he have
boring
something to do with
travelogue.
that?
But anyway, Hollywood found out about it, and they actually made some real films in Cinerama. There are not very many. There was The Wonderful World of Brothers Grimm with Russ Tamlin, Lawrence Harvey, and then I was in the last Cinerama film that was ever made, which was How the West Was Won, was actually shot utilizing Cinerama.
I know that one.
Yeah, it's a 3-hour-long Western that starred everybody in Hollywood. John Wayne, Jimmy Stewart, Henry Fonda, Gregory Peck, Richard Widmark. My dad in it was George Papard, and my mom was Carolyn Jones. My aunt, and she was sort of who the movie starred, was Debbie Reynolds.
Carolyn Jones.
Yeah. So it was huge Western, did well. And to this day, it's maybe every other year they screen it at the Cinerama Dome, and they sometimes screen it in actual 3-strip film Cinerama, which is interesting if you haven't seen it. But what Cinerama actually did for the movie industry was create widescreen projection, because it was another format. I think it was called Panavision Ultra 70. It was 70 millimeter. And it could pretty much emulate the width of Cinerama, but now you only needed one camera to shoot it, and it was shot anamorphically. So it would squeeze this panorama onto 70 millimeter film, and then the projector would unsqueeze it, and they could show it on the Cinerama screen. And it's that is an event. And fortunately, that movie, I've seen it so many times now, it really holds up. I mean, every time I've seen it, I'm always amazed. The script had a thread of humor through it, even though it was a serious topic that really made the film, I think, timeless. If you get an opportunity to see it, I'd see it. Or you can get it on video too, I guess. DVD.
So you don't have a problem watching you're not like me. You don't have a problem watching yourself on screen, apparently.
I don't watch myself that much. Just that, fortunately, I've got enough distance there I can separate myself. Just go, that's some other kid. That's not me. But I remember when we shot it. That was another thing that happened. You had all these stars. Henry Fonda and Jimmy Stewart and Gregory Peck. Well, when we would shoot a scene in a town, we shot in Prescott, Arizona, Lone Pine, California, Kingman, Arizona, and the kids found out that I was there. This is like at the height of my 3 sons in the early years. All these kids would show up near or at the set, screaming, "Chip, Chip." And all the movie stars were like, "Oh, is that my fans?" It's like, no, they're here for this kid. He's on a TV show. So it was pretty funny.
That is so cool. And by the way, Steve Joyner says hello, sends his love.
I'll say hi to Steve. Yeah, in fact, I'm going to talk to him the next day or so. Let him know I sent that picture. He wanted a picture from me, so I said, okay.
I will tell him if he doesn't see this first.
All right.
He told me, he mentioned that you were friends with Sherman Hemsley.
Oh, yeah. He was my neighbor when I lived in Hollywood. I lived in Laurel Canyon, and he was just up the street from me on one of the side canyons. And we met. We became really good friends. It was one of those things where that's the one thing about being an actor. Sometimes people don't know what you're going through because you're the only one that can relate to it. Just such a weird lifestyle of people chasing you, or you're eating in a restaurant and all of a sudden there's 20 people around your table that won't go away. And I was kind of, I was still getting out, I guess, occasionally, but he was at the height of his career then. And I was like, it's better you than me, man, to have to go through that. And so we, really identified with each other because of all the things we had been through. And he was a great guy, really, really fun guy to be around.
Yeah, I got to work with him just about a year or two before he passed away. Mm-hmm. He came back to New Jersey. He wanted to do a show, a one-man show where he talks about his life and sings his songs.
I think he did that and did some music.
He did some music. Yeah, it was. I never met a more humble, like somebody so famous but so humble.
I think that's why we got along. We were kind of cut from the same cloth that way, even though he's on a top show. He was like me, couldn't care less,
Yeah,
he's living in Texas. What I do for work. Yeah. Yeah. As I was saying, he was a good friend. And after he moved, he came out to LA and he'd need a place to stay occasionally. So he'd stay at my place. And I was planning on going down to see him. He had moved to El Paso. And unfortunately, I guess he had cancer and didn't know it. And by the
Uh,
time they found out, he was cooked. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Sad.
tragic.
Very sad.
But
But
yeah, I was grateful to have that weekend with him. It was just really a neat experience. Especially we bonded. We were in the green room before the show, and he looked at me and said, "Jason, I'm scared." And I just told him, I gave him a pep talk and just said, "You're an icon. These people are here because they love you. You can do no wrong in their eyes." And he just gave me a big hug, and I'll always have that moment. It was just such a neat
yeah.
experience.
Yeah. You don't think of people, who do that for a living and have done it for such a long time as having their insecurities, but they do, and that might have been part of our relationship because I'm like, you should be over that by now. You shouldn't be feeling insecure
You're still
anymore. But
human.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It makes him, a human being, and the fact
Yeah.
that he could express it, then, I sort of felt an obligation to bolster him up. And yeah, it's just like I said, one of my favorite people that was ever in my life. Yeah, for a long time, probably at least for about 15 years, 20 years. We were pretty close.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah, yeah. It's
So
a shame.
what is next for you, Stanley?
I don't know, because of COVID, man. I'm like freaked out. Plus, I'm
Are
getting
you leaving the
old.
house
It's
regularly?
like, hey, whatever's next coming along better come soon, man. I'm going to be
I mean, age
71 years
wise,
old in a month.
you look good.
Yeah, seriously, you don't look your age at all.
No, well, thank you.
I mean, I wouldn't say any more than 69 or 70.
Easily, yes.
Definitely don't look like 71.
Yeah, I know. I don't know how I got here so fast, but I did. But yeah, I've got a couple. Still have a production company, and we were doing pretty good till last year. We were supposed to shoot a pilot last year, and I kind of got cold feet about doing it because of bringing people together and what we were reading about COVID. And Screen Actors Guild came down with some mandates about what not to do, and it's sort of like, well, gee, doing a TV pilot is kind of what they're saying not to do, or any of it. You're bringing 30
Everything
people
they say
together,
not to do is
cast and crew.
involved.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're bringing all these people together, and what if somebody comes in with COVID and you don't know it? And these people are going to have to take their masks off, at least the actors. And I thought, well, I don't want somebody that I know getting sick. And then what if they die? And besides the actual production, I was the signatory producer. So guess who
You
they're
don't
going to
want that
come
on your
sue?
hands.
So it became like a liability issue for me. I'm like, wow, I don't know if I want to be responsible for this if something really goes sideways. So I decided to sit it out, and I did. And yeah, sometimes you go, well, maybe I should have done it. Maybe nothing would have happened. But I don't know. At my age, I'm for erring on the side of caution. Anyway, I have another pilot that's kind of sitting there, but yeah, getting money is much more difficult than it was in the past, just because people don't know what's going on, or are there going to be theaters, or what is TV now? It's not like, oh, gee, there used to be ABC, NBC, CBS. Now it's all streaming and networks and
Oh my
Netflix.
God. I've seen some crap on Amazon Prime, and I feel like
Yeah.
anybody can make anything and put it and get it up there on
Well,
streaming
I'm
now.
of the mind that, they're like anybody else. You need a lot of programming. It's like the networks need 24/7 programming. But, if you're Netflix, you really need a lot. So I look at it and I go, I think what the deal is they do spend a lot of money and some big money to buy some films and some well-known films that people probably would want to watch again on Netflix. And then the rest of it's just junk that couldn't get sold. But saying that too, I've actually seen a few films that I never heard of that were low budget films that I thought were absolutely amazing and nail biting. And if I saw this one film, what was it called? Oh, darn it. Well, what the premise was, it was some people who went skiing for the weekend, and they take the what is going to be the last lift of the day up the mountain, and they get on it, and the guy was running. It tells the other guy says, "Hey, stay here. There's some people I just sent up, and wait till they come down to make sure they're off the mountain." And anyway, something happens, and he gets called away. So this ski lift is going up, and all of a
Frozen.
sudden,
That was called
Frozen.
Frozen,
That's it.
right?
That's
Yes.
the name of it. Yeah, not the
Yeah, that
Disney
was fun.
Frozen.
Yeah.
But anyways, these people that spend this terrifying, night on a chairlift that just stops because some guy, he didn't know he was supposed to wait for these other people to come down. So he turns it off and they're up there and a storm blows in, and they're freezing. And one guy jumps down and wolves eat him up, and another guy
Yes.
falls. And then there's only this girl left and she's got to figure out what to do. It was hairy. I thought, wow, what
That
an
was a good one.
amazing film, because you can just shoot that on a soundstage. You go out and you get the master shots of the ski lodge and, seeing the chairlift go up, but the part with it in the air, you can just put that up on a soundstage and, get a couple blowers and whatever.
And that's COVID friendly. I mean, that was done way before that, but you could actually almost shoot it just like the
Yeah.
Zoom films. They're shooting films on Zoom.
Yeah. Well, I think with that iPhone 12, you could actually make a movie now. I mean, the only thing you wouldn't want to do is use the microphone. The mic is not of professional level, but certainly that camera. I just showed somebody something I had on Beta SP, which was what the networks were showing, these big 3/4 inch, or 1-inch tapes. And you look at it and you go, oh my God, it's like crap. It's just crap. I mean, what was it called? A high 8 camera had better quality than that.
Super
And,
8, yeah.
now these cameras are shooting, in 4K if you want them to, but high def or ultra high def, shooting in 2K or something. It looks
and
great.
you can do that with your iPad and iPhone. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all about, what you're shooting and lighting it, a certain way. And, that's the difference between a movie and just pointing a camera and shooting. But if you couple that, you hire a sound guy with good mic kit and some, wireless mics, good boom mics.
And don't forget, most importantly, a good writer, a good story.
Yeah, well, it all starts with that. We just watched some movie the other. I can't remember what it was called. Had no story at all. It was just people saying lines and walking around for like 2 hours, and then it ended. I'm like,
I've
well,
fallen
what was
victim
that?
to those.
Yeah.
We have a few commenters. One woman said too much junk, LOL. And Rocky. She said, oh, also, hi, Stanley, looking good. I love and miss those old shows. Still watch the reruns. We have a heart. We have someone, Daniel Romano says, love the show. Real Drunk Housewives of Australia says, good day, guys. Okay.
Good day back to you, mate. Yeah, in fact, it's funny. There was a friend that I met who came over here from Australia. Gosh, probably about 5, 6, 7 years ago. Who was a big My Three Sons fan and had written I ended up called the My Three Sons Companion, but it was about a 300-400 page book he wrote that was everything about My Three Sons. I mean, like on the molecular level. His name was Jeff Brown. And really great guy. He was just a super nice guy. And I thought obviously spent a lot of time gathering the information for this book. And, unfortunately, he got cancer and passed away.
Never saw the light of day, the book.
Yeah. I wish something could happen with that book. Because, boy, he really... I'm reading it and stuff I didn't even know. And I'm in the darn thing.
You could take over where you left off.
Yeah. Well, I think he had kids, so maybe they'll do something with it. I was trying to hook him up with a publisher here, but that whole world is like the movie world. It's like, well, nobody wants to do anything unless they're sure it's a hit. They don't just publish anything anymore. Even though My Three Sons, I was going to say, if you're looking at TV, is one of the most iconic shows ever on TV. It's the second longest running sitcom, and it's one of the few shows that it's never gone off the air. I mean, it came on the air in 1960, started September 19th, 1960 on a Thursday night.
Well, it brings good feelings to a lot of people.
Yeah, so we did 12 years worth of that. Then it went into syndication for about 15 years. Then Nickelodeon showed it at night. They started showing the old black and whites. And then 10 years later, in 95, TV Land started showing the color episodes. And they had 24-hour day programming, so it was part of their lineup. And since then, I think it's been on God knows how many.
You're embedded in history now, Stanley.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we're about out of time, and I just want to thank everybody for watching. And Stanley, thank you so much for taking the time out and chatting with us.
I had a great time, and I appreciate you guys having me on. And hopefully, everybody enjoys those stories and keeps watching My Three Sons.
You heard it. Keep watching.
Keep
The
watching.
memory
God
alive.
bless
Look to
me
the
TV. That's all I can say.
All
Or
right.
Bubble
Me
come to your
TV, there's
house and
being
get
nothing
you.
to watch on TV.
All right. Take care, everybody. Thank you again.
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye.
Thank you
Have a
so
good
much.
Have a
night.
great day. Bye
You
now.
too. Take care, guys.